There are three levels to building business systems. There's the system, there's the process, and then there's standard operating procedures. But most people couldn't tell you the difference between these three categories, and that's exactly why they're building systems that don't actually stick. So we're going to review what each one is, how they connect, and which one you need in order to build a business that can run itself. We're going to start off with standard operating procedures, the lowest and most detailed tool we have for systemizing our business. SOPs are business recipes, and just like a recipe in a kitchen teaches you to achieve a certain outcome and get a certain cake, SOP in business shows you how to do a certain outcome and achieve a certain result. Oh, and if you'd like to see an example of what these standard operating procedures look like, how to actually write them for a small business, check out the link in the description below. I've given you my SOP template. You can put it right inside your tool of choice, and that'll get you started totally for free. Standard operating procedures can go by many different names like playbooks, work instructions, and so on. Each of these names implies a slightly different level of detail or type of tool, but largely SOP, no matter how you hear it in this kind of context, we're talking about a recipe in some kind. But regardless of what you call them, one of the challenges that comes up around SOPs is how detailed and how big should they be? Should I have a standard operating procedure for how to solve world hunger? Or should the standard operating procedure be how to make a piece of toast? How detailed should we go? There's a lot of different answers to this question, but in our experience systemizing small businesses at ProcessDriven here, we've worked with over 2,000 at this point, what I've found most helpful is to make your SOPs approximately the size of one task. This means something you can do by one person in one work sitting to achieve one specific outcome. So this might be how to offboard a client. This might be how to record a YouTube video. This might be how to send an invoice. If that sounds like a foreign concept, you can watch this video up here to learn all about Task Management 101 for small businesses. But we don't want standard operating procedures that are really long, multi-purpose endeavors that involve a lot of people, a lot of steps, a lot of different things. For example, how to train a new hire. That is something that takes 6 months or more. That's not something I want inside one SOP. Another example might be how to retain a client. That's a whole system of a lot of different pieces coming together, way too detailed to have in one little recipe. Now, when I say that, usually people start thinking, wait a second, Layla, if SOPs are so detailed and I only create them one task at a time, how do I handle the bigger picture stuff? Where does that go? How do I keep track of the big picture, like how we onboard a client or how we deliver our main service? The answer, my friend, is to move up one layer when it comes to our process jargon and talk about process. Because process is where we take all of these little pieces we have as recipes and we put them together into one cohesive flow. A process in small business is a series of actions we take to achieve a particular result, which I know sounds very similar to a task. What's the difference? Well, when it comes to a process, we're often connecting together multiple tasks in our business. So each step in our process might have its own SOP, its own to-do, its own person in charge, and its own due date, but it's spread out usually over time or multiple work sittings, whether it's the same person or a team of people. But if that doesn't help you, here's a second criteria you can use to gut check, is this a process or not? Usually, processes are things that directly impact weekly key metrics for a business. For example, here at ProcessDriven, one of our goals is to get people to join our email list because I want to tell them about my book that's coming up and other things. And so when people join our email list, we track it on our weekly key metrics. But the way we influence that weekly metric is through our processes. In this case, we have a process for producing YouTube videos. Inside that process, there are smaller tasks. And for many of those tasks, such as filming a YouTube video or editing a video or scripting a video, there are individual SOPs where they are helpful. But here's the thing about process that can sometimes trip people up. Because businesses are so interconnected, everything affects everything. That's just true. Processes are not these perfect little folders that we can put work into. The fact is, processes are a lot more like a road or a highway system. Just like a road that could change names every time it turns, or a road that winds its way throughout the highway and always has the same name, we can have processes that are very broad or very narrow. There's a lot of discretion and creative choice here. The key thing to remember is that a process is just taking you towards a specific outcome, and you can be as specific or as broad as you'd like. But what if you don't want to do that? What if you want to consider everything that happens, all of the ways the road could turn, that maybe when you're working on a YouTube video, it might lead into content, or it might lead into short, or it might lead into a blog post? What if you want to zoom out a layer more and see the whole highway system, all of the roads and the boroughs and the neighborhoods and the school districts? If you want to see the big picture ecosystem of your business, well, the answer is in the word. we want to look at systems. A system in business is what happens when we zoom out even more. When we start to factor in not just what are we doing, but how does that feed into other areas? How do all these processes we have fit together? Who is in charge of these processes? What platforms and software are we using? And how does all of this impact the big picture goals of the business? So let's zoom in so we can zoom out again and see how this works. Right now, I am filming episode 461 of our YouTube channel here. That is a task that I have to do. To do this task, I have a standard operating procedure that tells me the things I need to do when doing this task. All of those are together. Now, if I just do that task by itself, it's not really that valuable. It really needs to be a part of a larger assembly line for value to really be generated, which is why it is a task as part of our YouTube content creation process. That process includes scripting, filming, editing, publishing, blah, 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 all the stuff we do for free to make sure that you are entertained. Are you entertained? And that process contributes to our weekly key metrics, but it by itself does not make sure ProcessDriven achieves its overarching goals. No, if I just spent all of our time producing YouTube videos for free that cost us an enormous amount of time and money, we would just go broke and shut our doors. Ooh, by the way, if you're enjoying this video, please do like and subscribe, share this with a friend. It really makes a huge difference. Back to the video. The job of YouTube at ProcessDriven is not to just have content for content's sake. I have no interest in being a content creator, and I don't want anybody to know me, but it is here in order to make sure we generate high quality leads for the business that is ProcessDriven. So the process of YouTube content creation is actually part of the system of lead generation. This lead generation system includes YouTube content creation, email content creation, opt-in funnels and optimization, all sorts of other processes all fall into this system. We can't just view it as a collection of processes. There's other tools at play here as well. There's software that's being used. There's YouTube that's here. There's you, the audience. There's me. There's Carolyn and Josh who work on our videos. There's Mariah who makes sure this stuff all gets pulled together. There are so many pieces that go into this puzzle. If we're talking about the overall system, we're going to be talking about the big picture, all of the pieces at play. The process tells us what is happening, who is doing it, and when are they doing it. The overall system is telling us why what we're doing actually matters, and those SOPs that connect to our tasks tell us how to do these activities. And you know, just like process, systems have this ability to scale in and out even more. I could zoom out even further and think, well, you know, this isn't just our lead generation system. This is our IP creation system. Yes, leads are part of it, but we also want to create intellectual property that's uniquely ours, ideas that I can then use to work in the book that I'm writing right now. There's a broader system at play. And if I want to zoom out even further, I could think about this as a revenue generation system because the IP is producing revenue and so are the leads producing revenue. So this is all revenue generation. And if I want to zoom out even further, I could talk about wealth generation, that as part of this, we want to build out the asset value of ProcessDriven so it's a more valuable entity to exist, so that way myself and others who are involved in the business are able to benefit from that in the long term. Because we tend to zoom much further out, systems are things that generally are used to influence monthly or annual metrics. When you're thinking strategic vision, when you're thinking what numbers is the leadership team in charge of, you are thinking often in terms of systems, not at the level that a team member would be directly influencing. So now that you understand tasks, you've gotten the free SOP template I have in the description, you understand what processes are, and you get the magic of systems, where do you start if you really want to systemize your business? Well, the answer is clear. Right here. This video will show you how to start systemizing your business in as little as 5 minutes. Just watch that video for your next step. And until next time, enjoy the process.